Yeah, we back now. We got a crazy video to get into today, man. I don't even know. I can't even believe this, man. But anyways, I'm not going to waste no time, man. I'm going to jump right into the footage. And as you know, I'll be right back. Let's go.
Beautiful. Do you support separation from Europeans? And is it really time for that right now? Or is it realistic in 2023?
And that's a very valid question. A lot of people have asked that question. And the answer is, where are we going to separate to? The white supremacists, as Neely Fuller says, they control the known universe. We can't even go to the moon. The white supremacists control the moon. The white supremacists control Mars. If we figured out a way to go to Mars, the white supremacists is already there. They control the world and the known universe. So we have to deal with the problem of white supremacy head on. There's no separation because they've dominated all of the known universe. So we got to deal with them head on. And we have to replace that system of white supremacy with a system of justice. And it's up to us to do that.
White supremacists control the known universe. You see how Tariq is trying to program his people into this this innate fear of white supremacists? Don't nobody control the universe. Can't none of them go out there for 6 months or a year and live on Mars? How do you control the universe when you can't even get to the next planet? And whether or not you reach the moon is debatable. What are you talking about? China got a science program. They're not white. Oh, but they own everything. Boy, this guy sounds like a true plantation slave. Hey, let's run away. Nah, man, Massa owned 400 acres of land. You could walk for 2 days and 2 nights and you'll still be on Massa's land. What we need to do is just get out here in this field and pick this 100 pounds of cotton. And if we pick enough cotton, then we can go to Massa and ask him to give us a day off. This is Tariq's mindset. And it's in him. He can't shake it. It's who he is. It's who he is. And a lot of people are like that. Not one Indian person wake up saying, man, I might as well not even go to America. White people own the whole thing. China own a big portion of America. Japanese hold some billions of dollars in American bonds. They're not thinking like this Negro talking about a code. They like, shit, the white man can get got like everybody else. The white man can get got like everybody else. Why do you think the white man is so afraid of China and India repairing their relationship? Why do you think the white man is so afraid of Germany and Russia repairing their relationship? Because he knows in order to maintain control, he has to work with other groups of people. The United States can't do much to China if they don't got those Japanese ports. They can't do much to Russia if they don't maintain a presence in Ukraine, Germany, Finland. Tariq doesn't, the guy is a middle school dropout. He doesn't understand geopolitics. He doesn't understand it.
Now, we back. Let's jump into it. I got to be honest. What Tariq Nasheed said is not that far off from the opinions of the average black person walking around that we see every single day. The only reason we may be surprised is because Tariq Nasheed made it seem that he was more enlightened than the average person. He made it seem like he was more conscious than the average person. But if you ask your mom, if you ask your grandma, you ask your person at the post office their opinions, right? They're not going to tell you anything revolutionary. They're going to be like, yeah, man, you know, white folks run everything. Like, the majority of black people have a get in where you fit in, go along to get along mentality. The vast majority of us are not conscious or revolutionary in any sense of the word. And that's fine. I mean, well, it's not fine, but you get what I'm saying. Like, it is what it is. When you hear Tariq Nasheed say what he said, you kind of have to have an ounce of sympathy for him because he's simply a product of the American educational system that I always talk about on my channel. We can't expect him to think any differently because when you look back at the curriculums that we were taught, this is simply a natural progression from the seeds that were planted in our minds as children. But you got to sit back and ask yourself, right? The same Europeans, the same white supremacists, right? That Tariq Nasheed claims controls the universe, controls the air and the sea and the water and the fire and all the elements of the universe and nature. The same ones that control that. If you go back just 700, 800 years, they didn't have a dime to their name. They didn't have a dollar to their name. They didn't have a pot to piss in, a bucket. They didn't have nothing. They were entrenched in poverty and disease and poor hygiene. That was one of the main reasons that inspired them to hop on them boats and take to the high seas and travel the world, because back home in Western Europe, it was a garbage dump at the time. And it's human nature, when your back is against the wall, you get desperate, you'll do whatever to improve your situation. That's why they hopped on them boats. That's why they went to Africa. That's why they set up the colonies. That's why they put us in slavery, because the only other option they had was to languish away in poverty. Just back 700, 800 years ago, the Europeans could have easily said, man, we can never take over the world, man. The black man control everything. He control the universe, the air, the sea, the rain, the water, the snow. man, he control everything. The black man control the moon. Because you know, back then, 700-800 years ago, it was them black men up in Mali. It was them black men up in West Africa that was making noise. Before social media, Mansa Musa was going viral all over Europe. The European kings could have easily said, man, we can never get on that type of level, man. We can never get like the West African kings, man. They got like $300 billion, man. We can never, man, we ain't even got none, man. Our people dying from disease and hunger and filth, and we don't even got food to feed them. And I bring up that story because look how fast the timeline changes. Look how fast the position changes. Look how fast the tables turn. And I understand Tariq Nasheed, he's hiding behind Neely Fuller. He quoted Neely Fuller, but he gotta understand Neely Fuller grew up in a different time. We can't carry on inaccurate doctrine simply because the person who spread the doctrine was an elder. Sometimes things are outdated. The Europeans do the same thing. Sometimes they realize, man, this was some junk science, man. This was some nonsense. We came back, we did the research, the hypothesis, ran the experiment again, and we got a different result. So we got to throw out that old batch of information. It doesn't work no more. For example, one of my grandmothers thinks that Jesus is about to come back and we about to ride off in the sunset. But see, I can't take her as an accurate source when it comes to the current economic, political, and militaristic climate. Of course, I still love her, but when it comes to that arena, you know, I'm sorry, Grandma. I'm sorry. And this is coming from somebody who has Neely Fuller's book within 10 feet of me on a bookcase. I'm not saying I don't respect what Neely Fuller said here and there, but even I understand that you cannot just take everything somebody said and take it as the gospel. But the reason why Tariq Nasheed has to rip off quotes from other scholars and other groups of men is because he doesn't have any unique information to bring to the table. And I know we bring up the fact that he dropped out in the 9th grade, but even if you dropped out, you can do independent research. Regardless, even if you got a PhD, you're supposed to do independent research as a black man or woman after you leave school. Because the curriculum they teach us starting from children and the seeds they plant in our minds starting as children, we have to undo a lot of those mind viruses. We have to undo a lot of that false information. And as I've already admitted before on my channel, I dropped out of school back in college around the age of 20, 21 years old. But I've never stopped reading. I've never stopped studying. I've never stopped acquiring more information. I got stacks of books all over the crib. And to be honest, now I understand why Tariq Nasheed's content never branched out into international affairs. You notice Tariq Nasheed stays right within the borders of the United States. And at first you could say, well, he's just focusing on where he's at, which makes sense. But now you understand that the true reason why he never branches out into international affairs is because he wouldn't be able to keep up with the conversation. He doesn't have the information. He doesn't have the knowledge. He doesn't even have the historical knowledge. Because if he did, then he would understand that the so-called white supremacist that he says controls the moon and Pluto and Venus and everywhere else, he would know that they just got in power in the past couple centuries. Tariq Nasheed is acting like these guys been in power for as long as we could remember. Bro, they just got here, bro. And for them to get to where they were at, they were going against black men head on for 300-400 years. This mentality that the so-called white supremacist controls the air and the seas and the ocean and the water, our ancestors and our forefathers did not agree with that sentiment. When the Europeans came on our shores in the early 1500s, you could ask the Portuguese what happened to them the first time we seen them. The Portuguese got defeated on the battlefield on multiple occasions. The French got defeated on the battlefield on multiple occasions. The British got defeated on the battlefield on multiple occasions. Going all the way back to the early 1500s to the late 1800s. It's already documented on record. The Kingdom of Congo washed the Portuguese on the field of battle. The Zulu Kingdom washed the British on the field of battle. And we already know the Spanish, the British, and the French suffered defeats at the hands of the Haitians on the field of battle. And it's truly shameful because Tariq Nasheed, I believe he's the father of 2 young boys, if I'm not mistaken. 2 young sons. So what information is he going to teach to his young sons as they get older and navigate the world? Is he going to teach his young sons that he's beholden, he's at the mercy of other groups of men, and that he will never be able to change his circumstance? Because if you ask me, I think Tariq Nasheed had all of us fooled. Tariq Nasheed made it seem like he was the guy on the front lines going against the power structure, but if you ask me, Tariq Nasheed is actually the guy who's actually defeated. Tariq Nasheed mentally, spiritually, as a black man, he's defeated. Tariq Nasheed hopped online and said another group of men control the entire universe, and there's nowhere you could run to escape from their influence. How can a group of men control the universe when they can't even live in every part of the world? Logically speaking, they can't even survive in every part of the world, but they somehow got a lock on the entire universe. And this is how you know that the vast majority of Tariq Nasheed's fan base is men, because I guarantee any black woman that was in the audience and heard that black man say that white men control the world, the universe, the air, the ocean, the seas, the oxygen, and the hydrogen, what the fuck? Yo, for somebody who has positioned himself as a public figure speaking for an entire demographic of people, for you to hop on your microphone and say that you'll always be beholden to the influence and power of another group of men, bro, your wife should have divorced you immediately. Your wife should have went straight down to the courthouse immediately, bro. Immediately. Ain't no way Ain't no way this is gonna be the father of her children, bro. And I know Tariq Nasheed gets on black immigrants for having a certain mentality, but I'll tell you this, bro. Coming up, my father ain't never told me that, bro. You know what my father told me coming up, man? My father told me anything is possible. The sky is the limit. Anything you see anybody else do, you could do the same thing times 2. It don't matter if you black, it don't matter your background, it don't matter your religion, it don't matter nothing. As long as you're willing to outwork the competition, as long as you're willing to go harder than the competition, as long as you're willing to study harder than the competition, as long as you're willing to train harder than the competition, I guarantee you're gonna be high flying, you're gonna be number 1, you're gonna be sitting in the winner's circle. And then Tariq Nasheed and some of his fan base might see that mentality as, oh, they're not acknowledging white supremacy, they're not acknowledging white supremacy, but it's not about acknowledging white supremacy. You can't teach your son these things. You can't teach your children these things. Regardless if it's true or not, you have to have the mentality that anything is possible. You have to have the mentality that you can win. You have to have the mentality that you can compete, and not only compete, but also defeat the adversary. And when I look at the life that me and my family currently enjoy, I could say that our reality is a reflection of our thoughts. I don't agree with Tariq Nasheed when he says that the Europeans control the air and the seas and the ocean and the universe and the Pluto and the Mars and everything in between. I don't believe that. I don't believe that. I feel like the tables can turn within a century, because if you understand that their wealth and power was built off our destruction and our poverty, then you would know that they're heavily dependent on what we have to offer. Forget the labor, forget the manpower and the expertise and we built the country and we built Europe and we built America and we built France and we built all that nonsense. Forget that. I'm talking about the reason why so many of these multinational corporations are in Africa. How could they be unstoppable if they're heavily dependent on what we have to offer to maintain them in power? And all it takes is a few black men with dignity and honor and a population standing behind them to simply cut off the faucet, cut off the power base, cut off their access. But of course that would take unity. Of course, that would take belief in oneself. Of course, that would take knowledge of history, because anyone who has studied history understands that the seat of power, it changes. The person who holds power, it always changes, right? Way back, 3,000-4,000 years ago, it was in East Africa. It was in North Africa, right? And then it went to the different nations and locations, the Greeks and the Romans, and the seat of power continued to move. It continued to shift. And then sometime 800 years ago, 700 years ago, it went back into West Africa. That was the seat of power. And then it shifted and shifted. And sometime in the past 100 years, the past 200 years, now the Western Europeans hold the power. And the white Americans are an extension of the Western European. But now we got different players in the game now. Now we got the Chinese and we got the Russians, and the seat of power is always going to shift. It's always going to change. Just like the championship trophy will always have a new location every season. The Western Europeans and their white American descendants will not always be in the seat of power for the rest of eternity. Even they know that. Even they have already accepted that. They've already mapped out a plan to where, okay, if we get knocked off the seat of power, what are we going to do to either, maintain that power or try to assimilate into the current world order? They've already mapped out a plan in case China gets too powerful, in case Africa gets too powerful, in case the Russians get too powerful. They've already mapped out a plan for different scenarios. They know they're not going to always be in power. They know it's a competition. They know they got to compete. That's why they put their money behind it. That's why they put the military behind it. They put everything behind it. They put their media behind it. A whole entire system, a whole entire infrastructure from top to bottom built around maintaining their power and influence around the world. They understand empires rise and fall. They've already accepted that. So if the Europeans themselves, the so-called white supremacists, as Tariq Nasheed likes to call them, if they've already accepted the fact that they're not going to be in power forever, why is Tariq Nasheed saying they're going to be in power forever? Why does Tariq Nasheed say they control other planets as well? That doesn't make any sense. And this is somebody who has made a movie on the Haitian Revolution, 1804. Now, I never watched it. I didn't have to, because I got a grandmother, I got elders. Listen, I don't know, man. Like, to be honest, back when it was coming out, I didn't really look at it as a credible source of information because Tariq Nasheed was not a Haitian. I'm not being xenophobic. I'm just saying that it's certain information that you're not gonna get unless you go directly to the people living up in the countryside, deep into the mountains. I'm talking about people who've been living there generation after generation after generation. For example, I got a grandmother that lives in New York and I got a grandmother that lives in southern Haiti. My grandmother that lives in Haiti, they've been living on that property since goddamn the early 1800s, bro. So the stories they got, the stories that they passed down, you're not about to get that on a Google search. You're not about to get that, off a YouTube video. We're a very isolated country, and that's how we've maintained so many of our ancestral traditions generation after generation. So the fact that Tariq Nasheed was not a Haitian, I thought it was some bullshit back in the day. I'll be honest with you. A lot of people said it was fire, but it is what it is. Go to my playlist section if you want to learn some real in-depth Haitian history from a reputable source. Anyways, for someone who did an entire documentary on the Haitian revolutionaries to say that Europeans control the air, the water, the sea, the universe, the oxygen, the hydrogen molecules in the air, I guarantee every woman that he had in his congregation immediately unfollowed him, unsubscribed, because that was the most non-masculine statement that I've heard in a very long time. For example, even if you thought that, right? Even if you were genuine in your sentiments, that's not even something that you should even say in public, because it's children watching, right? Like you wouldn't play any adult movies around children, because that would be child abuse. You should never say this around children, because this is child abuse. Imagine telling a young boy, 6 years old, 7 years old, young black child, telling them that you'll never be able to be a winner in this planet, not even in the next planet, because the other group of boys over there, they forever gonna be on top of you. In my opinion, at that point, you can call CPS. You can call child services at that point. You're not supposed to say certain things when there's children watching. When you position yourself as a leader, you're not supposed to say certain things when your women are watching. Jesus Christ, bro. Our women are watching. Yo, this is crazy, bro. And before I go, man, I just want to say, in summary, that statement from Neely Fuller that Tariq Nasheed said as it pertains to the white supremacists controlling the entire universe, I guarantee this is an ideology that was invented by Neely Fuller, and we got to throw it in the trash can. Because when I studied history extensively, black men have never held this sentiment. Even against opponents who presented themselves with superior technology, we've always held our heads high, with dignity and respect, no matter what was in front of us, man. Even when the Europeans came with machine guns, you know what we did? We ran head first into the machine gun bullets. We didn't give a damn. When you study pre-colonial African history, our forefathers never held the Europeans in high esteem. They never felt that the Europeans were unstoppable. And the only reason some of us may express that sentiment today is simply due to the curriculum that we were taught since we were children. It's not accurate. It's not true. It's simply indoctrination. It's simply propaganda. But here's the beautiful thing. We can create our own propaganda. We can establish our own indoctrination. We can establish our own universities, centers of learning, curriculums. We can establish our own media companies that promote our own image, that can push our own positive propaganda. We can educate our children in a way that would send them in a different direction so they could have more belief in themselves than the previous generation. And when you look at the Chinese, you see that the Chinese is following that type of blueprint. The Chinese is making sure that all facets of society, every aspect of society, promotes Chinese nationalism. I remember one article that I heard that the Chinese government was thinking about changing some of the characters in the Bible to make it more Chinese-centric. And the reason why the Chinese are so focused on pushing their own positive propaganda onto their population is because they understand that you have to start planting seeds into the mind as children. Like the old saying goes, you can't fix broken adults or something like that. You can't fix broken men. You have to build strong children. And unfortunately, Tariq Nasheed is a broken man. Tariq Nasheed is a broken man. And it wouldn't be so shameful if he also didn't have a wife and 2 boys following behind him. It would be fine if he was just a single man by himself, but he has a woman and 2 young boys following behind him in his ideology going nowhere. A man who has already waved the white flag of defeat. And somebody who has already waved the white flag of defeat in terms of competing against the adversary, you understand why they have a mindset geared towards integration. You understand why when you approach them with certain ideas and say, hey bro, the world is big. The world is bigger than the borders of the United States. We should travel the world, plant our flag in different areas, do business in different locations, set up infrastructure and international networks so we can get it pop and make money worldwide. And then we can take that money, reinvest it into more infrastructure to generate more profit, and then take some of that money and go invest into political influence. Go step into the political arena and start moving our weight around, start flexing our muscles, start kicking our feet on the table. And then once we start holding large amounts of economic and political influence, then we start funneling money into the media, pushing our own positive propaganda. And then at that point, once we got our economic infrastructure in order, once we got our political infrastructure in order, meaning we got some politicians on the payroll doing our bidding because we got the big bags of money, and then we got our own media running 24/7, pushing our own positive agenda, and then we got our young sons and daughters up in the schools that we built, reading the textbooks that we wrote, the curriculum that we set up so they can carry on the torch for the next generation. That's what you call a system. That's what you call a system, right? When Tariq Nasheed says the system of white supremacy, in reality, it's everything that I just described. And guess what? We can set up our own system as well. But Tariq Nasheed would never agree with me because he said that white men control the air, the food in the stove, the food in the toaster, the ocean, the oxygen, the hydrogen. Even if I build a rocket ship and I go to Venus, the white boys gonna be right there waiting for me. So because Tariq Nasheed, he believes this, he subscribes to this ideology of failure, this ideology of zero self-belief, he'll never agree to ever step out and travel the world and go to different countries and go to Africa and build a bridge with Africa, because in his mind, he believes that the black man does not have what it takes. He believes that the black man does not have what it takes to really be a winner. on the economic and political battlefield. And when you go back into his lineage, just like Brandon said, just like Pan-Africanism Strikes Back said, I guarantee Tariq Nasheed's great-great-grandfather was on a plantation saying the same thing. And on every plantation in every colony, you had black men and women saying the same thing. Saying that we can never forge a reality for ourselves. And Tariq Nasheed, for somebody who studied the Haitian Revolution, I'm sure he knows what we did to those black men and women who, when it was time to pop it off, when it was time to set it off, and they told us, man, we can never forge a reality for ourselves. I'm sure Tariq Nasheed knows what we did to those folks. God rest their soul. But in reality, I understand why Tariq Nasheed has been pushing xenophobia and division the way that he has. Because logically, the only way for us as a people, as a collective, globally, to rise up from the current position that we occupy, the only way to do that is through unity and cooperation. But if you don't even believe that it's possible to ever rise up from this position ever at all, then I understand why unity and cooperation is not on your agenda. It's your boy Neferkari Desalegn back in the building. Yes, indeed. Like, share, subscribe, Cash App in the description. And I'm gone. Peace.
Reincarnated, I'm back in original fashion. I left on a horse and came back in that ass, and I left with abundance and came back to famine. We used to be pyramids, now we be rapping. Look how the mighty have fallen. Used to be running, now we be walking. When you be cooning, that's when they applauded. Selling your soul, your sons and your daughter. Gotta come up in this shit, they stuck in the mix. Really, my heart it be breaking. That's why I'm stacking that paper and handle my business. Pass it down in generation. Talking about money and power and building a nation. That's a deadly combination. Never be watching the TV, they pushing agendas, falsifying information. Know they got malice intentions. Step in the room and I'm feeling the tension. Enemy watching, he blocking my vision. Pay for the check cause I need my redemption. Building my kingdom, I need it protected. Ready for war like a young Money Congo. Never decided the team is the motto. Up in the crib and I'm whipping up waffles. Up in the crib and I'm smoking gelato. I'm chilling, I'm taking my pain and make it ambition. I'm blessed by the gods, but I ain't religious. I came for the power, they came for the bitch. They making no hourly wage, I got business. This is an art and they could never be taught. Selling my soul, I can never be bought. Play with my money, I see you ain't caught. Run to the check and I do it for sport. Babylon falling, I go to the source. Packing my luggage and go overseas. Shorty be with me and she so elite. Shorty be chocolate, I'm calling her Hershey. Secret intelligence probably gon' murk me. Don't fuck with brands cause nigga I'm Haitian. Say the wrong shit and you're smacking their faces.